Thank you. Shelley, would you please conduct roll call?
Yes, sir. Keith Austin,
Here.
Joshua Sam, Danny Callison, Julia Coates, Sean Crittenden, Joe Deere, Mike Dobbins, Rex Jordan, Johnny Kidwell, Daryl Legg, Wes Snowfire, Dora Petzkowski, Mike Shambaugh, Melvina Shotpouch, E.O. Smith, Kendessa Teehee, Victoria Vasquez. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Shelley. I'd entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of the December 13th, 2022 meeting. We've got a first and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's approved. I'd like to start today's meeting with an announcement. It is the intent of this committee to keep the NF meetings open to the public and that all agenda items be posted at least 10 days in advance of any meeting. This is to allow the public and the members of the Tribal Council with ample notice of topics up for discussion. The committee chair will recognize only those questions from members that are relevant to the present discussion. Any questions or comments which deviate from the topic of discussion can be addressed at the following month's committee meeting after being placed on the agenda. No outside material will be discussed unless it too has been placed on the agenda and distributed to members through the normal process. In sum, we want the public to have the benefit of full transparency and input of the Tribal Council. Thank you. Now, reports. Mr. Chuck Garrett. Thank you for joining us in the best way you can today. Can you hear us yet? It appears not. Yeah, he's not reacting to us. Well, we're going to move to Janice Taylor while this problem is being worked out. Yeah, I'll text him. Okay, up next is our treasurer, Ms. Janice Taylor.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm glad to be with you today. And I also wanted to express how nice it was to see so many of you at the Boys and Girls Club event on Monday. I always like it when there's a broad representation from the council, and you guys really brought it that day. It was nice to be together. I know your schedules are full, and I know a lot of you travel quite a distance to get here, and so to show up for events like that really speaks to your commitment to the people that you serve. So moving on, you have a copy of my report. What we have going on in finance, other than what is on the report, we are constitutionally required to have our audit completed by the end of March, and so we are in the auditors are not on site yet, but we're in the preparation stages of that, submitting various things to them. And we're also in the process of doing a software upgrade that is going to affect finance a lot in the midst of doing our reports for the American Rescue Plan Act funds. So we are pretty busy over there, but never too busy to take a call from you all. So if you have any questions regarding my report or anything that's come up since the report, I'll be happy to answer.
Other questions? Wow, nothing.
Okay, I will stick around for the budget mod.
Are we ready yet with Mr. Garrett?
Good afternoon, Counselor.
Hello.
Hi. Good afternoon to all. Good to be with you and provide a report on the December 2022 financial results. Pleased to report that both business lines had net income results exceeding budget and lots of momentum, very good flow through from our top line to our bottom line. So very pleased about that. The details are in the E&F report that has been delivered to you. We currently have 7,956 employees at CMB. 60% of the positions that we're able to exert preference are Cherokee citizens. Another 6% of those positions are Native Americans, excuse me. So a total of 67% Native utilization for positions that we're able to exert a preference. One thing I wanted to mention, Mr. Chairman, per exchange with you, there have been some questions raised about the status of our meat processing plant and where we are in the opening of those services. And with your permission, I suggested that we provide a 10-15 minute overview of where we are and some of the progress we've made in the next steps, so that if you get questions from your constituents, you'll have good answers for them. I believe will be on the agenda for next month. That still is agreeable, Council.
It certainly is with me. Thank you for that. Thank you for that proactive step right there. Are there other questions for Chuck? Were there any questions today? I see none. Thank you for taking your time. I see you're probably traveling today someplace.
Doing some traveling here locally, but I'm in Tulsa right now, and I wanted to just get on the agenda for the meat processing plan as well, because that's an important initiative that we're all proud of, and just want to make sure that we're keeping you adequately informed.
Excellent. Thank you again. And we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you all. Look forward to it.
Diane Kelly, representing Career Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've got my report, and I just wanted to share with you that we've been getting ready for a Quest quarterly report. We've been working on that. We had some training with some of our staff just recently. Shauna Miles and Jennifer Kirby and I jointly put together a Public Law 102477 review for all of our staff. We've got our public law group coming in to review our programs in February. And then our project director, Cynthia Green, will be looking at our quarterly report for Quest, so we're trying to get ready for that. We also did a joint meeting with the TANF group and the social services group so that they would be aware of some of the things that we're proposing to do this next year. So that meeting took place. We had about 65 at that meeting, and we had about 83 at the Public Law 102477 meeting. Career Services is combining all of our programs so that we have a database, so that, you go to the clinics right now, and when you go to the clinics, if you saw somebody at the Three Rivers, it will transmit over to the hospital when you go over to the clinic here. We will be able to do that with all of our field offices, so that if somebody comes in at J and then they come here to Tahlequah, we'll be able to access the information so that we're not having people crossing over and trying to get services in 3 different locations. In fact, the staff have been working on this for probably the last 3 weeks diligently, and we hope to have it rolled out hopefully by the spring. We've been working on some new grants, a grant called Youth Bill that we're working with Housing Authority on right now. Excuse me. We also have an EDA grant that we've submitted, and we're waiting to hear back on that. An ICDBG, which is for some construction that will work with us in conjunction with our training center. And then also we've got year-end reports that we're working on. We're also getting ready for some DOL visitors that are coming in sometime in the next month. So the staff over there have been working diligently to get everything in tip-top shape, everything repaired that needed to be repaired. one of the things that we were notified by was our landlord at Wagner recently, and they're going to, the law office that was there when we had our open house, they've moved out, so the whole building is available for us to use. And I'm working with Jennifer Kirby, and we're going to develop it as a one-stop center, and she will also have services there in the building. So this will give us about 4 or 5, I think it's about 5 one-stop centers, so that when our tribal members go to one of these locations, they'll be able to get all of their services under one area, and they won't have to drive clear across town. So that's what we're working toward, so that we will have this in just about all of our locations in the near future. And I just wanted to share that with you. Are there any questions? I'm sorry, I had bronchitis this week.
I'm hoping nobody has a long question for you, because I'm not sure your voice.
I'm
will-
hoping that you don't either.
Are there any questions for Diane? Any short questions for Diane?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you. Anna,
Good
it's your turn.
afternoon. I'm sorry, I should have waited for you to call me up here. I was just barging in. I do have one thing to report to you, and that is the VITA schedule in your packet has been adjusted. So I've left copies with Gail of the new schedule. We just had a few date changes and locations while we were trying to figure out where all these people this year. We're having several different departments help us with preparing the tax returns, and so it's enabled us to change the location of some of them. So you have a brand-new copy, and Gail will make sure you guys get them. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about my report.
Are there questions?
I would just like to say I need a quick minute with you after this meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you've all been supplied with the list of consent items, and unless there are objections, those will all be approved in total. Seeing no objections, we'll move on to the business items. There's no...
Do
Yes.
have an addition on the roads,
Okay,
and I apologize, I meant to print it out a while ago, but I'll report it on the next month. And I wanted to mention also on the law enforcement, she did go ahead and put the allocation on the law enforcement spreadsheet for you. For planning purposes, that budget will be in next month's budget mod for all the motor vehicle tax budgets to be approved. So it's on your report, but you don't actually have it to spend, but just there for planning.
and the portion of the roads funds that come to us in early in the year, are there?
That will be in next month's budget mod also.
Okay, perfect.
And on the, I was going to mention on the law enforcement that the schools and roads and stuff are based on gross receipts, so those amounts have went up a little bit, but the law enforcement is based on the net earnings from motor vehicle tax, and it is down a little bit this year. Couple items, they did some reorganization, added supervisor positions at all the locations, and also the new building and location in Catoosa added substantial expenditures because we're paying rent now where it was free, I think, where we're at before. So your allocation is a little down on the law enforcement. I wanted to explain that in case anybody noticed that you had less to spend this year than last year.
Appreciate that clarification. Anybody have a question for Jody? Thank you, Jody, for always being
Okay.
available
Had
to
one,
us.
huh?
Yes, EO?
So on that community assistance, this is what we could spend now?
Yes, that's another note too. She did add the, if you remember, you get $7,500 for elective travel, and whatever you don't spend rolls over to your community assistance following year. So she has the allocations in your spreadsheet for those amounts now, so.
So if I want to check, did I tell you or tell her?
Just go ahead and tell her, and she can add it in, so.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Anything else? All right, thank you, Jody. There's no old business, there is new business, and Josh, would you take the item number 1?
This is in the act amending Legislative Act Number 29-22, authorizing the comprehensive capital budget for fiscal year 2023, Mod 3, and declaring an emergency. And I put this in form of a motion.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. On number 2, Counselor Shambaugh, would you take that?
This is an act amending Legislative Act Number 30-22, authorizing the comprehensive operating budget for fiscal year 2023, Mod 4, and declaring an emergency. I put this in form of motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Counselor Kidwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of comments on this budget mod, and they're not substantive. They're not about the changes themselves and what we're trying to do. I agree with everything that's in there. What I would like to bring everyone's attention to has to do with the new positions that are being created, the FTE. Now, whenever we did the original budget back, a few months back, and passed that budget, we had this conversation with Treasurer Taylor about, hey, how many positions do we have open right now that we haven't filled like in the past 3 years? And I've got that. I have that list, and I'll just bring one example. For example, Human Services, in this budget mod, they're creating 2 or 4 brand-new positions where they have 24 positions that haven't been filled in the past 3 years, which if you haven't filled those in the past 3 years, I would think that we need to do something about that. And my choice would be that we reprogram those billets instead of create new ones, because what that ends up doing is if we keep creating new and not filling old, we end up with an inflated budget every year that we're having to deal with positions that we haven't been able to fill in a maximum number of years. So my desire would be, and I'd hope that a few that might agree, is that when these budget mods come through, they end up going. That's why I asked the question in the last meeting to our human resources, Ms. Hendricks, if she sees these, if she doesn't see these budget mods and she's not able to help, get rid of old positions that we obviously don't need if we haven't filled them in 3-4 years or even some longer than that. Is that so? I guess to sum it up, I think that instead of creating new positions, these should go through human resources and those departments that have positions that have not been filled in the past 3 years or longer. Those should be reprogrammed to meet the needs of the new budget mod so that we don't inflate the budget overall with FTE. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Shambaugh?
Well, I have to tend to agree. Councilman Kidwell, we talked about this a little earlier, and we might even, really not even 3 years. I mean, this should, if it goes for a year, I mean, you're talking a year, and we have a yearly budget, probably shouldn't go over a year if they're unfilled. But also, like Councilman Crittenden recommended in our HR meeting, that, we're suggesting that there's time frames put on as far as our hiring processes, and maybe it should be extended to how long that process is for a job opening. If you can't fill a job within X amount of time frame, then that job would probably need to be applied for again, or it needs to go back through the process again and not just stay on the books for over and over and over. And we can't keep adding new jobs when we have these other open jobs, I don't think is very efficient, and it could affect our budget. So that's something that I think each department needs to look at. If you have old jobs that are just lingering, those things need to be closed out, and if they need to be opened up, they can be opened up again. But there needs to be a time frame set on our hiring process and these things so we can be more efficient in what we do. And that's Councilman Crittenden's idea on that time frame. I think it's a great idea.
Appreciate that, Counselor. Counselor Deere.
We've had this discussion, last couple of years, and I think it's good that Councilor Kidwell brought that up, and I agree with Shambo, and we were talking about with HR, that this money just sitting there, it's in the budget. I mean, there's got to be a better way to do it with these positions if they're never getting filled, to maybe reappropriate that and use them instead of coming back with a budget mod, adding and adding and adding. You're just, like Kidwell said, you're inflating it. There has to be a better use of those funds. I mean, take them out and rebudget them, use them instead of it just sitting there. So, and I think that's across the board. You'll see it in health. You'll see it all across them. There's 60 positions here, 20 here. Take that number, add it up. That's millions of dollars that we've appropriated for them to use. And I think if they're not going to use it, then we should do something else with that. So I agree, totally agree. And the timeline that Crittenden brought up was a great idea. Because that's going to have accountability to the department heads. There's got to be a reason why they're not getting hired. There has to be some reason there. I mean, if you got 5 of the same positions and it's been a year, it's probably not going to happen. Make it 2. Then take that other 3 appropriated funds. You could use it for anything if they go back in their department and look, maybe some of the people that have been there longer, it could be used for salaries and different things like that. So I agree, all those are great things. So that was my comment. Thank you, Chair.
Jody?
Yeah, I agree. We have a lot of vacancies, but just kind of as a technicality, a lot of these positions are budgeted because technically they can't hire, say they're looking for, let's take example health, they've got 2 positions in their budget, but they have physician assistants that they're budgeting also because they can't, whichever one they find first is who they're going to hire. If they're having trouble finding a certain qualification, they may hire, something else. Or in the case of some of these, if their vacant positions are administrative assistants and they've decided they need a risk manager, they have to actually budget for that position to be able to hire that position, new position. I agree sometimes they may need to say, okay, we're never going to be able to fill this position, or we decided now we don't need it, and they can cut that out of their budget and kind of reprogram it. But either way, they would need, if they're going to hire new job titles, they need to budget for those new job titles. That's the reason why a lot of times, there's new positions, but it's just new job titles too that they need to get approved to be able to hire for.
I appreciate that. I remember that from some previous discussion, but I certainly couldn't have quoted it. Thank you for bringing that to surface.
And I'm not trying to say that they shouldn't be looked at, and definitely should be, because I bring it up every year, comprehensive budget, how many vacancies we have. And a lot of them plan for, they have all these different positions, and they'll actually plan their budgets around knowing that they can't fill all those, and there's like a vacancy rate is a negative coming out of their payroll line because they know they can't, fill all those positions, but they do have to have those job titles in their budgets in order to be able to hire them when somebody comes up for whichever job title, so.
Yeah, you can't just shuttle, the monies can't be shuttled from job to job. It's
right, they have to be listed in the budget.
Okay. That we'll never get rid of it, but we certainly need to get more efficient about it.
I agree that that needs to be looked at, because it's not always, but not necessarily intentionally padding budgets, but I know that that's the case sometimes, so.
I appreciate that input. Counselor Callison, yes.
Jody, so let's say there's 100 positions not filled at $65,000 a year. So if they don't fill them year after year after year after year, does that money just continue to roll over, or where does that go?
In most cases, whatever doesn't get spent, if it's a general fund budget, if it doesn't get spent, it just comes back into the calculation of the carryover available for gen fund, or in the case of, say, health, where it's Indian health dollars, that doesn't get spent, and it's part of their money that they have available to budget the following year. So as basically like it's new money, but it's just unspent carryover money.
Mr. Kidwell,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
hold on 1 second before you speak second time. Does anybody else have anything to say? Question, okay. It's all yours.
Thank you. I would just want to reiterate that, I'm not saying that we don't need the positions.
Right.
This is easy. This is all easy when we have a big budget and everything's great, and then we're able to build things and hire people and do great things. Man, everybody loves it. Eventually, that money's going to tighten up. Okay, and if that money was tightened up today, what we would say is, I know you need these positions. Go figure out how you can do that internally. That's what we would end up saying.
Yes.
And I think we need to get used to being ready to say that. And we have an opportunity to start that process now instead of allowing us to continue, rolling nice and easy like we have been. Eventually, we're going to have to do the tough things, and I think that's up to this body to make those things happen. So I would say that we need to start earlier instead of later, and no better time than the present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All that being said, I appreciate the discussion, and we will call for the vote here. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Same sign? Aye. All right. Any abstain? It passes. Thank you. Any announcements? Stick around. Special counsel. 2 minutes. Are you taking a break? Do you want to just step right back into it? Okay. One more motion, please.
Second.
All in favor?